Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritual Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits December 1st through December 7th. I'm putting this out on November 30th. There was a special for the Mercury retrograde. Some of y'all were having some issues. I am giving you through today, November 30th, to go to the website and do the thing. I'm not going to go over it again because I've gone over it constantly through the intro of all the episodes throughout the month of November. And we are now focused on December. So you have until the end of the 30th to go to the website and do your bookings. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. 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 Oh, man. All right. Going into this week, it's not just this week, it's going into this month. This week is also going to encompass a full moon, a very mentally charged full moon, because it's going to be a full moon in Gemini. But whenever it comes to the vibration around this full moon, Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, just ended a retrograde and is stewing all throughout the week of something that needs to change. Now, it's going to be a little different for all of us. Some of us, we need to change a certain pattern in who we communicate with, how we're communicating certain things. Some of us will be getting held accountable for the things that we have said or done. Some of us need to do really mundane things. And we need to go change some things tied to Mercury. You need to go get the oil changed on the vehicles. You need to upgrade your cell phone because it started acting wonky, or you broke it. Some of y'all broke your technology, or your computer, or something tied to your, like there's electronics, technical, something in this vibration. And it's super mundane. Like while the last few weeks have gone on, we've seen some kind of issue. And now that Mercury is direct, is like, okay, it's time to find a solution. And the peak of the full moon, for a lot of you where you've been hesitant, whether it is on big, emotional, super big things that's going on in our heart cavity, in that chest cavity, if it's been going through big things here, by the time we get to the full moon, the thing that we need to release will come through. If it is the mundane things, the things that we need to process, we need to switch out, upgrade, fix, whatever, it gets highlighted this week. And I want to be clear, for some people, it is going to be something super mundane. For other people, it's going to be bigger things, especially because of how the Mercury retrograde ended. Going into the depths of Scorpio, the underbelly of our emotions, the deep seated wounds, the traumas, the triggers, the things that we must work through to overcome. This Mercury retrograde throughout the month of November was a necessary messy to make us do some shifts. And now that we're getting into December, oh, baby, there are shifts coming. There are shifts coming. And this first week of shifts is strategically moving some things, having the long, hard conversations, breaking up with your cell phone carrier. I'm thinking Black Friday, and a lot of people, you did electronic stuff, and a lot of people, you like to upgrade your phones. This is about the time that you decide you're going to switch carriers because the options are better when you're the new customer. Like, I'm just thinking it this way. Some of y'all made some decisions to make a change. For some of you, it was a very responsible change because not only did Mercury end its retrograde over the last week, so too did Saturn and his vibration. There's been a shift in certain weights, a shift in certain emotions, a shift in certain responsibilities. For some of us, again, it is big, spiritual, family oriented, deep seated wounds, how we do something different. If you listened to me and did the opposite, Thanksgiving was a lot easier. If you didn't do the opposite and you try to do the regular things, some of y'all, Thanksgiving was a little tumultuous. It was a little lit. There was actions and reactions. But for those of us that did the opposite, it felt peaceful. It felt calm. It felt relieving. It felt hopeful. I didn't need all that. I didn't need to get dressed up and go hang out with 50 people that I don't even like, that I know don't like me most of the time. I don't need to do that anymore. I'm good. I'm good. Here, beanbag. I have a beanbag. Dogs, TV. Nah, I'll make my own traditions. I'll do my own thing. And for some of you, the necessity of understanding why you need to do your own thing was very, very clear over the last week. Not following the norm, not doing what everyone would have expected of you, doing what you felt was right, what you felt was necessary. There was a calmness, there was a peacefulness to it. But for those of you that decided to follow the tradition and go against your gut and do the things that's just like, it's like grating you as soon as you walk in the door, like, yeah, it's so nice to see you too, Aunt Carol. Just felt like you were just grating your skin on a cheese grater. You're energetically reacting to your environment. And so many of you, you don't recognize when your body is reacting to the environment. I don't want to do this. This isn't a good place for us. This isn't comfortable for us. This isn't the thing that we need to be doing. You've felt it before, but we don't clue into the fact that our body is reacting energetically to our spaces. And many of you kind of went through the cheese grater. Now you have a different reflection. You have a different mentality. Now it's kind of more aware. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to keep doing that. I don't want to try that again. I don't want to go that direction again. I don't want to do that. And for many of you this week, the logical part is how we're communicating something or what we communicate or what we decide to reveal. Some people are going to reveal, I'm not coming back for Christmas. I'm not coming back ever again. I don't want to do that. I've decided to do something else. And that will spark a reaction. That will spark frustrations. That will spark some tension. And that's okay. It really is. When it comes to this month, there is a necessity of transitioning vibration. And a lot of December is transitioning, going into new places, doing new things, being with new people, going in another direction, moving things into their places, putting something into order because we have something new on the horizon, whether we can see it yet or not. We have something new on the horizon. And for a lot of people, you needed to make space. You needed other people to press your buttons. For some of you, you needed to press the buttons to make the space. November was a necessary messy, where we still have wounds, where we still need to draw our boundaries, where we still need to focus on what's best for ourselves and not on how we make everyone else happy. Where we need to focus in our healing process and where we need to release things that do not move with us. Now that November is over and we're going into December, we're releasing the past and transitioning into a new focus. This is going to be the first week of December, just in general. And what I'm going to tell you now, and I will explain more whenever I do the month ahead episode, this is a busy month and it is a fast month. It will go by in a blink of an eye. But unlike all the other previous months this year of the moving of the fastness, this isn't going to necessarily bring chaos. I think it brings determination. I foresee that it brings gains. And the gains that come through will also lead to new things taking shape going into next year. Now, this is not a huge week. The biggest transit that we have is the full moon in Gemini. And I feel like the full moon in Gemini is really capping off some final things tied to the Mercury retrograde. But beyond that, we're making decisions. We're moving away from some things, whether it is people in big places in our job or relationships or anything like that, or if it's super mundane things like doing something different with your car, because I'm thinking of mercurial stuff, doing something different with your car, writing out some new information that you've uncovered, doing some more documentation. There's some, for some of you, it is going to be documentation, finally putting some filings together, finally gathering all the data to provide to put some filings together. There's movement, but stationary. Like it's like you gather everything, but it's not being processed yet. You fully commit to going out and making different connections and meeting with different people and doing different things. You fully commit, but you can't immediately take the action. It is a hopeful week. I feel like it's a lot more positive. And I feel like for a lot of people, there are a lot of signs that are working with each other. And for a good half of the week, that really rings true. So I want to describe this first part before we actually get into the transits of Monday. So this kind of ties into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, based off of what I'm going to be doing. And that is like we have trifecta energy. Now, this is not a common thing. This is just something that I tend to notice. And that is when three planets are kind of working with each other, or they're in mutual, like a layered version of mutual reception, that these signs tend to work with one another. And we start the week this way. Even when the moon changes signs, it will continue this way. So I want to explain this trifecta energy before we actually get into the transits, because I want people to understand that there are multiple houses in your chart that are working together. I'm just not breaking down the houses because I'm more focused on the transits. Breaking down the houses is why we do one-on-one stuff. Okay, trifecta energy. Jupiter and the moon are going to be these two nails. My knuckle over here is either Venus or Mars, depending on which one we're talking about. We start the week with the moon in Aries. So the moon is in Mars' sign, Mars is in Jupiter's sign, and Jupiter, of course, is in the moon's sign. A little bit later, the moon will go into Taurus, and we're going to do the same thing all over again. The moon is in Venus' sign, Venus is in Jupiter's sign, and Jupiter is in the moon's sign. So there's this trifecta energy of bringing something new to light, Jupiter in Cancer. The transition of Venus and Mars going through Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is a mutable sign. Mutable signs are the bridges that take us from one season to the next. So there's a transition in the energy. While the moon is in Aries, and that's again how we're going to start the week, it is an action, it is a reaction, it is starting, it is pushing something forward, it's giving a little bit of motivation, but it doesn't have to be like the heaviest thing in the world. It's just like we're not sitting still. When the moon goes into Taurus, then it's like whatever we're starting to transition through is going to be either transitioning something that has been a certain way for a long period of time, because Taurus is a fixed sign, or it is putting an idea out there of something that we want to transition into for a long period of time, because again, Taurus is a fixed sign. There's something in the vibration through the first half of the week before we even get to the full moon of putting something into motion. And again, it is more than one area of the sky. It is more than one area of our charts that are kind of ringing through this reshaping. And we will see movement, but it's not leaps and bounds, jumping over buildings types of leaps and movements, but it is connection. There is forward motion. There is putting something finally into order that we wanted to put into order back in October, but we couldn't for one reason or another. We couldn't. Okay. Let's get into the transits. Let's get into Monday. Let's talk about this a little bit more. Okay. All right. So I've got this December 1st, 4:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, between 3 and 5 a.m. Central Standard Time. Mars in Jupiter's sign is going to hit this trine to the moon. Remember, we have this level of like triplicity mutual reception. Like it's more layered. Normal mutual reception would be one planet in another person's sign. This is not quite the case because it's triple players. So it tells me that it's bridging vibration, but it's not, again, something super direct. We have connections and motivations that are kind of coming through. Whether those are positive or negative, that's going to be based off your own individual human effect experience. But there is movement, there is a reaction, there is a motivation. And when Mars goes through the trine with the moon, Mars is hosting said moon. There's fueling in this, there's inspiration in this, there's direction in this. This is what I want to do. This is how I think we should do something. This is how I think we should move forward with something. This is what I think will be the solution. Please put a pin in that, because later in the week, we might be coming back to a solution comment. So I will specifically reference like whatever was kind of coming through, whether it's based off conversation and the human effect or the download, so to speak, of Sunday night going into Monday morning, as to what actions or activities are kind of flowing in. So some of this might be solution oriented, but not immediate solutions. It's like, I got an idea. We could try this. You could check over here. You could do XYZ 1, 2, 3. And if that is so far the case, then we might be coming back to this in another way later this week. So again, kind of put a pin in that little note. All right. As we get into the morning time between 9 and 11. Oh, I'm on days. Why did I do that? I forgot to switch back to hours. Excuse me. Hold on a second. There we go. Between 9 and 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to hit a conjunction to Chiron. You can see this right here. Again, we are looking for a solution. Chiron is the wounded healer. For some people, we are talking about how we were hurt over the weekend, how we were hurt in the last few days, and how that hurt is leading to an action. That could be a big part of it. For other people, it's a solution. I've got an idea. It's going to require XYZ 1, 2, 3 type of action, reaction. It's going to require this. It's going to require that. I've got an idea of how we fix something, of how we heal something, of how we overcome something, but I don't necessarily know if it's the right way to go. I've got an idea. I've got an inkling. I've got something going on here. Again, for some people, the solution is got future focus to it. For other people, it's an immediate solution. If it's immediate stuff, I feel like it's kind of smaller, just kind of given the way the rest of the transits will go throughout the month. That's going to make more sense of the month ahead episode, just FYI. But there is something here that speaks to either the wounds, past wounds, recent wounds, something that hurt our feelings, or the solutions. The layered of how many solutions is kind of different for everybody. So we're going to keep this going. Between 11:30 and 1:30 p.m., so I got this now at 12:30, we're right at lunchtime, the moon in Aries is going to hit a square to Jupiter. Now, the moon is hosting said Jupiter. The moon is in the higher authority. So this is giving guidance to the doctor, the guru, the teacher, going with the Jupiter stuff. This is giving direction to the teacher. This is asking questions of the teacher. And there's levels of reception here in regards to like the give and take. The doctor, the guru, the teacher, the person that gives us support, the person that gives us guidance, the person that gives us hope. For some of us, there is an action tied to whatever is going on with the doctor, the guru, the teacher. There's actions tied to what we need to learn and understand. But there is reception here because Jupiter is retrograde moving towards the moon. So they're very much pointing towards each other. So there's reception, there's acceptance, there's something in the meeting, there's something in the forefront, there's something that we're talking about that's meant to help us overcome certain things. It's a part of our healing process. It's also a big part of the transition. And that's the bigger part. Considering Jupiter is hosting so much right now, Venus is now in Sagittarius. The sun is, of course, in Sagittarius. Mars has been in Sagittarius for a couple of weeks now. Saturn just turned direct in Sagittarius. Neptune is about to end its retrograde. This is going to happen next week. It's not this week, just to be clear. But we're getting really close to this kind of turning around too. There's a lot of energy towards what Jupiter is hosting. And the main thing is Jupiter is also hosting that North Node. We are meant to start to have gains. But at the same time, we have not had the first rounds of markers to truly notate the gains until this week. This is the first week where we can really get an idea of what some of the gains are going to be. And for a lot of people, the conversation or the reception, Moon square Jupiter, is what we want to do now, what we're trying to do now, What new thing is coming through? What new thing has recently come through? Because over the weekend, for some people, whenever Venus moved into Sagittarius, it brought something new, whether that was a mundane thing as small as like a device in your hand, whether that was a subscription service. I'm trying to go with super mundane things for just a second because of what the weekend was, gifts of some sort. But for other people, it was much, much bigger, and it was a person. The arrival was a person, something that feels like it can instigate support. And it's like having conversations about the new support or that new little butterfly feeling. There's something new in the air. Okay, moving along. After the moon hits the square to Jupiter, the moon's going to go void for a couple of hours. Once we get into the evening time, at 9:13 p.m., I got this now at 9:30, the moon is going to go into Taurus. Now, magnanimous. The moon does very, very well in Taurus. The moon is said to be exalted in Taurus. But we have that triplicity thing going on. The moon is in Venus's sign, Venus is in Jupiter's sign, Jupiter's in the moon's sign. Venus does very, very well in Sagittarius. Jupiter's in its exaltation, as well as the moon in its exaltation. This is promising energy. This is hopeful energy. This either is meant to bring something through in the next few days that can, have a long-term effect, something that we want to start, something that we want to transition into, that again will have a long-term effect, or we start talking about something that we want to change, but the transition, the change, again, has a long-term effect because the moon is in Taurus. Taurus is a fixed sign, stable earth energy. Whatever we start to talk about once the moon goes into Taurus is meant to transition something into a long vibration. It's either fixing something that's been going on for a long period of time, or it's bringing something new, someone new into the fold that is going to have a long-term effect over the next 2 days while the moon is going through Taurus. And remember, we're building up towards a full moon, not a full moon in Taurus. We are building up towards a full moon where we're meant to have certain kinds of long-term transitions. So remember that part. Okay, I'm gonna keep it going. I'm really hopeful. Okay. The moon is now in Taurus. Now, the one thing about the moon in Taurus is as soon as it goes into Taurus, it does go into a square from Pluto. This is actually going to start around 11:30 p.m. on the 1st, so on Monday, but it will keep us going into Tuesday. So I'm going to start talking about part of this right now, and then we'll transition it over into Tuesday. Pluto's in the higher authority, but what I like about Pluto right now is Pluto's doing like a final round over the sky of areas that he's already done his damage. He's already been here before. There's a long-term change that needs to come through, and some part of the changes can come with some heavy weighted getting over past fears, getting over past traumas, still having some kind of recap around the past fears and the past traumas in the vibration. But what's interesting is while Pluto is going through this square to the moon, and again, it starts on the 1st, it continues into the 2nd. That's why I said I want to kind of bridge part of this. As we get into the 2nd, we're actually going to also have the Venus Pluto sextile, and Venus is building to its sextile all day on Monday, but it actually goes exact on Tuesday, so I'm putting the focus now on Tuesday. But Pluto is going through this square to the moon in Venus's sign, where we might have some weighted heavy energy Monday night going into Tuesday. I don't think it's going to last because, again, I feel like we come up with a solution, we come up with a support, we come up with an idea, we come up with something that again can either have a long-term impact moving forward of like, I don't want to go through that again, so here's the idea of what we present forward, or it's because this little trigger comes up somewhere between Monday night and Tuesday that we realize we have to make a long-term change. Like, this has been going on for too long. I don't want to keep dealing with this. What other options can we come up with? So it's either something raw, new, all the way around that once it's accepted, it's got a long-term effect. Or we test something that has been there for a long term. We go over one or two fears, traumas, triggers, frustrations, potentially, but this isn't fighting energy. It really doesn't have to be. That again has an idea of some kind of immediate solution. even if we didn't expect the solution from where it comes from. So again, Pluto square to the moon started on the 1st, continues into the 2nd. The other transit that is exact on Tuesday is going to be exact between 2:49 a.m. and 3:07 a.m. So I got this now at 3:30. And this is where Venus goes into her full sextile to Pluto. That's why I kind of included it whenever I was talking about that moon Pluto square. Is Venus is building to this. It finally goes exact. We're in this vibration all day on Monday. We will be in it all day on Tuesday. Venus is newly in Sagittarius. The moon is newly in Taurus. New energy, new plans, new frustrations, new solutions. Something new is meant to come through. And it's like, once that new kind of comes through, once we get that kind of support, once we get that type of approval, once we get that type of gift or object or something, it allows for us to fix something, to find a solution to something, to overcome something, to put something different into order. Are we doing it all at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning? No, that's just when it's the most exact. That's just when it's the most exact. And considering how the day will progress, the moon will be at Taurus all day long. Venus will separate from her sextile to Pluto, not meant to be heavy energy. And considering, again, Venus and the higher authority in the sextile, the solution, the healing, the help, the aid, the support is very crucial with how we overcome our fear or how we overcome certain anxieties, how we can put something to bed or how we can put something into motion in some way. Now, the thing is, after those transits in the overnight hours, there's nothing else to Tuesday. No direct transits. There's separations, there's buildups, there's these little windows, but not anything worth like heavy-handed, like beating up on. So I'm going to keep this going. We're going to get into the 3rd. We're going to get into Wednesday. The moon is going to be in Taurus for most of the day. And whenever it comes to the morning time between 7 and 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, so I got this now at 7:30, the moon is going to make an opposition to Mercury. Now, remember, we are building up to a full moon in Gemini. There can be some stubborn energies. Human effect, that stubborn energy can be a part of Tuesday. Some people might be a little like tense and whenever they first get certain reactions. Some people, again, might be stewing over some things because we want to make a long-term change. Some people need to have a certain amount of conversations before they accept the long-term change. And this might be where we're having some of those conversations. This can also be an energy where certain people tell the changes that they have recently made because this is a newly direct Mercury. This is the 2nd time he's been in this area of the sky. He turned direct at 20 degrees. He's now at 21. So he's already actually kind of moving again. Some of the energies of what we try to commit to back in October, we have now had something come through that has made us make a change, or it is the energies of October that has allowed for us to feel more supported to get through all the necessary gunk that was that Mercury retrograde, the emotional gunk that it was. But there's a very interesting conversation with the moon opposite Mercury. And there can be some news, again, of a change. There can be conversations as to why a change is necessary. There can be some people that are just saying, I can't do this anymore. XYZ 1, 2, 3. I want to do something different. I want to go in a different direction. Blah, 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 blah. A change is happening. This can also give a glimpse to what happens in the full moon. And the full moon is going to be exact on the 4th. We're not that far away. It's the 3rd. We're still building to it. So there's news here. As we keep it going between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, so I got this now at 11:30, the moon is going to go through a sextile to Jupiter. This is conversation. This is support, doctor, guru, teacher, how we teach something to someone else, what lessons we've had recently, something about our healing, getting certain levels of guidance, offering certain levels of guidance, not a heavy energy. I got to be clear about that. Now, what's interesting is while the moon is in this sextile to Jupiter, it is also going through a sextile to Saturn. This is more exact between 12:30 and 2:30 p.m. So there's a busyness in the air whenever it comes to Wednesday. Saturn is newly direct, also wanting to put something different into order. His energy is not quite lit up quite yet. It's still more focused on the Jupiterian gains and the transitions whenever it comes to this. We're going to be a lot more heavy whenever it comes to the Saturnian energy by the end of December, but there is still some kind of conversations about responsibility, about who's going to be in charge of what, giving certain approvals, getting certain guidance, getting certain things committed to, getting certain things worked out, getting certain things connected with Saturn hitting that sextile to the moon. And considering we had so much energy towards the trine, there can be a couple more lessons in regards to what we need to release, what we need to purge, some additional conversations. But part of this really kind of speaks more to like, I'm just not in charge anymore. I'm not responsible for that. That's not my mess, not my circus, not my monkeys, not my pig, not my farm. It's not heavy in the sense of like, get away from me. It's more along the lines of like, oh yeah, I quit. Yeah, it was they wanted me to do X, Y, Z. I didn't like it. I took a job. I got this other opportunity. I'm doing something different. So and so is going to be responsible for X, Y, Z, one, two, three. I'm going to get transferred. I'm going over here. Like there's a transition in the vibration. And again, so much of the transition is about the long-term effect. It's either we're changing something that's been there for a long term, or we're putting something into place that is going to last for a long period of time. That's a big part of this level of conversation this week. Okay, we're going to keep this going. As we get into the evening time, this is going to be most exact between 6:30 and 9:30 p.m. in my opinion. So I'm going to put this in the middle, and then I'm just going to talk about it. So got it now at 8:30. So what's going to happen is the moon is going to hit this conjunction to Uranus. There are going to be some things that have come through that are based off technology. You see something and it's surprising. We get a hit with something very, very unexpected. But this also feels like it kind of goes back into that environmental thing because the moon is also going to go through a sextile to Neptune. And some people might be getting hit with something unexpectedly that they had no clue about, that it actually leaves them in like kind of a confused feeling of, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. I don't know where we're going. I don't know how that happened. I don't know what went wrong. And it's like sometimes you hear some kind of news that you're just like dumbfounded. You're kind of shocked. You need a minute to process it. And so much of that Neptune Uranus energy, whenever it went exact last week, it was very much about like clues in the environment, shifts in the environment, and I mean our environments as an individual. Some people are going to hear about recent shifts, and it's going to be a shock. It's going to be exciting for some. It's going to be surprising for others. It's going to leave a lot of confusion as to, well, if you're not, then what? Then who? I don't know. Not my plan. There's some part of that that kind of speaks through here, but it's very relieving. It doesn't feel like we're in the process of trying to shock people anymore. I feel like this is aftermath energy. We've already done a lot of this. And some of us are just going to be finding out, like you're having that little catch up with your friends. You run into somebody, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time. Where have you been? Oh, well, I was only here for the holiday. I moved 5 states away last year. Like, what? Having no clue. It's like, oh, I feel very out of the loop. Now, whatever does happen in this energy can almost leave our mind to spinning afterwards because at 8:49, I'm going to bump this an hour, the moon is going to go into Gemini. And as soon as the moon goes into Gemini, we're in full moon energy. But remember, Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, just turned direct. And he is retracing areas of the sky where he's already been multiple times. And what starts to unfold leaves our minds spinning, gets very, very confirmed in this energy. Now, is it going to happen as soon as the moon goes into Gemini? No. I think it happens over the course of the next 2 days, being even more highlighted and heightened through the actual full moon's energy. But as soon as the moon goes into Gemini, there is something that is being announced. There's something that is being released. There's news that is coming through. And it is meant to kind of, again, shock, confuse. There's some people, they don't even know what's going on. But the noise while the moon is in Gemini is going to be loud. It is going to be profound. The news is going to leave people spiraling. The things that come to light is going to shock even more than what we've already been dealing with. And there's been a lot of released information, secret released information through that Mercury retrograde that had a lot of things towards understanding power dynamics and power struggles and abuse that's been going on behind the scenes. There's something else that needs to come out that once it comes out, it leaves everybody. We got a lot of things to say. We got a lot of things that are going to start coming out of our mouths. There's a lot. The noise is going to be profound once the moon goes into Gemini. Yeah, we're in full moon energy. Let's keep it going. Yay. The moon is now in Gemini. Now, as we go into the evening time between 11 p.m. on the 3rd and 1 a.m. on the 4th, the moon is going to go through a trine with Pluto. I told you. You didn't want to hear me. I told you that this had happened. I told you that happened in the past. I told you that I thought something was wrong. There's something about like insecurity or a past power dynamic or past power fears of people in positions of power, fears around abuse, fears around trauma that need to be spoken. It needs to come to light. It needs to get revealed. And it's going to have a shock value. And I'm telling you, once the moon goes into Gemini, it's going to get real loud. And the things that people say that come straight from the chest is coming straight from the heart. It is coming straight from that trauma. And this is one element that speaks to, I told you something was wrong. I told you something went down the way that it did once before. There's something about this energy that speaks to tension, frustration, trauma, drama, that type of thing, with Pluto hitting that trine to the moon. Now, again, this starts 11 p.m. on the 3rd. It continues into December 4th, into Thursday. So this kind of triggering energy around Pluto, what I'm looking at is, this isn't trifecta, quite like what we were talking about at the beginning of the week. But what I am looking at, the fact is Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. Mercury retrograde ended in Scorpio. So there feels like a knowing, quite literally, a knowing in the vibration that triggers fear. It triggers insecurity. It's being brought to the light. It's being brought to the surface. There's a lot of noise here. But again, we can also have some mundane things too. Like you just have like that triggering energy that hits your spine of like, oh my God, I forgot to pay that bill. I gotta do that in the morning. I gotta do it right now. Some of us, we gotta do it right now. Like you have that little shock whenever you're awake. You're like, oh crap, I forgot I needed to do this. XYZ 1, 2, 3. I forgot. And that can be the mundane way certain insecurities kind of come through. But for other people, it's not going to be mundane. And this, I kind of feel like is going to be part of the collective energy too. Whatever kind of news kind of gets released or whatever happens throughout the day on Tuesday will be a big part of like the encompassing of the full moon that goes exact on Wednesday. Oh, so we're going to keep this going. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to hit this opposition to Venus. You can see that right there. Now, this can be a little bit more mundane. Venus has brought a lot of new energy. She's giving a lot of new support. She's bringing something new to the table. There's new conversations being had. Some of us need to be talking about the new. Some of us are talking about the changes because of the new with Venus's energy, or whatever solutions or results that she's been giving. And her results kind of impacts another side. It's feeding into the information of the full moon in Gemini. We're going to be building to this all day. For some people, the noise will still have benefits, especially during this Venus opposition. The thing is, this is happening between 3 and 5 o'clock in the morning. Not all of us are going to experience the quote, quote, benefit in that early morning hour. So human effect is, for some people, it might still be a part of that late hour of Wednesday going into Thursday. For other people, it's going to be more in that Thursday morning time frame after you wake up. And it's like you wake up and you see some type of result, some type of information, some type of support, some type of attaboy, some type of recognition, some type of result, some type of like Gift. I don't like just saying gift, but I feel like there could be like, hey, I got this for you. I don't know what else to call that. This is a gift. Or hey, do you want to get a coffee? It's on me. That could be the gift. And there could still be a conversation. There could still be some noise involved. But the human effect is not everybody's going to do this at 3:30 in the morning. That's why I wanted to be clear about that part. Now, we're building to the full moon energy all day long. It actually goes exact at 5:14 p.m. So put this now at 5:30. So basically between 4 p.m. and 6:30, I'm going to give a bigger window there. We're in full moon energy, and this is where it's peaking. This is where it's the most. This is where it's the most impactful. This is where it can be felt and heard the most. Certain noise is going to start to come through. Certain announcements are going to come through. Some of the things that come to light is going to have shock value. Certain people are going to finally feel the peak to release certain things because we no longer want them to impact our emotions. Now, a full moon in Gemini is not emotional. The emotions are coming from the fact that Mercury ended a retrograde in Scorpio. And for us to get over the wound, and for us to get over the trauma, for us to get over the abuse, and for us to be able to finally transition into something new, because we got a lot of new coming next year, we have to make the logical decision, full moon in Gemini. We have to communicate something from our chest. Say it with your chest, baby. It needs to come out. It needs to come into focus. It needs to be manifested, and it leads to new vibrations from here. Because Mercury is newly direct, it leads to new, but it also leads to settling the old. And as we settle more of the old, new comes through afterwards. And for a lot of people, there is a commitment here. A new commitment, logical commitment, new filings, new documentation. There is something new in this energy, even if it's closing out the old. All right. Again, we're in full moon energy all day long. It's just the most heightened between that 4 and 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time span. We're still going to be it all throughout the evening. It's going to be so pretty. I can't wait to see all your pictures, because I always get pictures of people like, look at this moon from my place. Like, yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Anyways, we're moving it in. We're going into the 5th. One of my favorite days of the year. I'm not going to go into why, but as we get into the morning time between 7:30 and 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, so I got this now at 8:30, the moon is going to hit an opposition to Mars. Simultaneously, while the moon is in this opposition to Mars, it's also in a sextile from Chiron. So this energy is going to be felt the most exact, in my opinion, basically from 7 to 10 a.m. I'm just going to give a bigger window there. Remember, I said back on the 1st, so back on Monday, to put a pin in that moon trine Mars, moon conjunct Chiron, that there could be something about the solution or an action or a reaction that would lead to a solution, or trying to like overcome some type of trigger, some type of wound we might be coming back to later in the week. Yeah, because we're still in the full moon vibration. The moon is hitting this opposition to Mars, while also we've got this Mars Chiron trine that's building. It's not quite exact yet. It's actually going to go exact later in the afternoon. But there is still some kind of energy about the news, about the communication, about what's on our mind, about what we want to put into place, about the actions that we need to take. Some of us, we need to have a very fueled, argumentative conversation. But that argumentative conversation, again, speaks to old wounds. For other people, it is giving an action or a reaction, like we're fueling something to encompass the solution. There's a mental energy and a drive energy here. Belief, focus, hope, not so much emotional. We've had a lot of emotional. November was a lot of emotional. This is not necessarily emotional, but it can be the actions that we're taking to overcome past emotions and past insecurities. So I'm not going to pretend like it's not, but a lot more people, this is fueling, this is energetic, this is hyperized. There's strong conversations being had. There is the work towards a solution. There is the work towards putting something new into order. This is boastful, But for some people, it is an opposition to Mars. So there can be disruption. There can still be chaotic disruption. There can still be arguments. And if that is the case, then it's a necessary energy at the time. But I don't feel like everybody's going to have arguments and frustrations. But don't get caught lying. I don't know why I felt the need to say that. Maybe this is one of those energies that people get caught lying. Okay. Again, the moon is hitting the opposition to Mars. It's going through this trine to Chiron. This is going to be felt the most exact, basically between 7 and 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, giving it a little bit of a larger window. Between 11:30 and 1:30 p.m. So I'm now going to bump this to this lunchtime hour. Got it out at 12:30. Saturn, again, newly direct, is going to square the moon. Saturn is in the higher authority. This is the action. This is the decision. This is the solution. This is what is required. This is what you need to do. This is coming from the boss. This is coming from the elder. Certain responsibilities that need to be had. For some people, this is advice. For other people, this is direction. For other people, this is recognition. I have made a decision to change something. Now, the reason I'm saying this is the moon is in Mercury's sign, going through that square from Saturn. Over the weekend, Mercury will re-enter the trine with Jupiter and Saturn. So we could be getting news, getting guidance, getting information, getting some type of direction or information that it's one element and there will be extra layers going into next week on how we put something into order. So this isn't just as clean as like one particular conversation for many people. It feels like steps. It feels like a layer. It feels like responsibility. It feels necessary. But for a lot of people, it's coming from the boss. It's coming from the elder. For some people, it might feel like judgment and it might trigger insecurities, but I don't feel like it's going to be that way for everybody. It really kind of comes down to your own personal effects and how you're dealing with this. But for some people, we might have a glimpse of an insecurity right here. Okay, moving along. I'm not getting too heavy into that because I don't feel like it's going to be that for everybody. Now, once we get into that afternoon time between 3:58 and 4:29 p.m., I got this now at 4:30, Mars will go through its trine to Chiron. Considering we started this day with the moon hitting the opposition to Mars and the sextile to Chiron, now we finally got Mars's trine with Chiron exact. This actions towards solutions, this actions to how we overcome a wound, this action to recover something or put something else into order. This has been a part of the vibration all day long. This is where this part is just going the most exact. And for some people, it is going to feel good. It is going to feel exciting. It's going to feel like we're finally putting something forward. This is a fire trine. Mars hitting a trine to Chiron. Chiron is being hosted by Mars. There is hopefulness. Mars in Jupiter or sign, Sagittarius. Mars is in Jupiter sign. That this solution will work. It will carry reaction. It will push something forward. It will allow for something to heal. I'm very focused on the healing aspect right now because we're in the final rounds, so to speak, of Chiron and Aries. Next year, we get our first glimpse of Chiron going into Taurus. There's a reason I keep saying the final things, and I will kind of explain that a little bit more detail also in the month ahead episode, just to be clear. But there is an action towards healing. There's an action towards solutions. There's an actions toward overcoming some things. This can be fuel just as much as it can be disruptive. I feel like it's more fueling though. Hopeful fueling. Okay. As we get into the evening time between 6 and 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, Neptune is going to go through a square to the moon. So you can see this here. Neptune 29 degrees, 22 minutes. Here's the moon at 29 degrees, 6 minutes. Neptune, illusions, delusions, lies, fraud, deception, spirituality. But what I'm looking at is the fact that Neptune is stationing. And this will be one of the last squares from Neptune to the moon, period, from Pisces. But this is the last square of Neptune to the moon before Neptune ends its retrograde. The next time this happens, Neptune will be direct. There can be a past lie, fraud, deception that feeds into the current narrative. You can be hearing something that as soon as you hear it, it's like, I've heard this lie before. I've heard this bullshit before. I've heard this before. No. I don't want your drama. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want whatever you're trying to sell. Mm-mm. Considering Neptune is retrograde, moving in one direction, the moon in its square is moving in a forward direction. There can be something here that you hear, and it's just like, oh, no, not, no, I'm not doing that. And that can be a very sharp, like, I'm not going to be intertwined. For other people, Neptune's energy is like, you know what? I need something imaginative and creative. I need something to just drown myself into. I need to flood my senses. I need to do something creative. I need to put all the Christmas lights up. I need to go outside and look at lights. I need to go do something that, like, I'm going to say clouds your mind, but it's more like I need a distraction. I've had the week, like we've had so much going on over the last month. I need a distraction. I need something different. And that can also be another way that this kind of comes through. And it's going to be a hellacious night for people to go look at Christmas lights, because I feel like a lot of people, like, that nostalgia and all of that energy is going to bring up a lot of emotions. At 7:55 p.m., I got this now at 8:30, the moon is going to go into Cancer. It's going to stir up some emotions. Now, for some people, it is going to be the emotions of what we need to do for self-care, what we need to do to feel confident and hopeful, what we need to do to no longer allow certain things to trigger us, what we need to do to heal. For other people, it's the things that we need to take care of around our home, with certain people in our lives. We need to take some kind of care or consideration. For other people, you're going to be kind of like stuck in your emotions because something is going to come through this week. And if you're one of those people that truth is what comes to light, some of y'all are going to get stuck in your emotions because you don't necessarily know how to react. But for others, we're not going through secrets. We're not necessarily having a bunch of things revealed about us. So the bigger focus is more along the lines of, like, this is what's going to make me feel better. This is what's going to make everything feel cozy. This is what's going to feel right. I just want to do this XYZ 1 2 3. This is going to be so great. For other people, it's like, this is what's going to make me feel cozy and warm. It's like hot cocoa and sweater energy. You're just like, I just want to do this. This makes me feel so good. It's Hallmark weekend. As soon as the moon goes into Cancer, it's a Hallmark weekend. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. Let's be positive for once. I'm tired of being negative. November was a lot. Once the moon goes into Cancer, again, we're just what we need to do for ourselves, how we need to take care, the things that we need to put in order for ourselves, the things that are going to make us feel good. We're going to get into the 6th. And the moon is going to be in Cancer all day long. There's only one transit that is actually going to exact on the 6th, and that is going to be the trine between Jupiter and Mercury. Now, this is the third and final one. Jupiter, of course, is newly retrograde, but Jupiter is hosting all of these planets in his signs. So there's a transition going on. And for more of these transitions to start, to take care, to move in a direction, for more hope to come to light, we need to deal with certain truths, Mercury, certain information. We need to sign off on some documentation. We need to put some things into order. We need to have some conversations. We need to support some people in their process of having conversations. And again, with the moon being in Cancer all day long, some of these conversations are going to be emotional. And we're going to have one final layer of emotions that is meant to come through over the course of the weekend. But again, so much of it is about, like, putting something forward, allowing for something to finally transition into place, allowing for something to finally heal, allowing for something new to come through. And this can be an idea just as much as it can be an actual conversation. Now, are we all having a conversation at 7:30 in the morning? Not necessarily. The human effect is we're going to be in this vibration all day long. And some of the conversations, some of the things that get communicated, some of the plans that are coming through are, again, a part of the healing process. But this is not like what we were dealing with the last time Mercury was in this trine to Jupiter and Saturn, because we're activating the Saturn part 2. This happened the weekend before Thanksgiving. So I want to say, what was that? Open a window. The weekend of the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd. Sorry, I didn't have that in my notes. So I just wanted to say that real quick. That weekend of November 21st, 22nd, 23rd, a lot of things weren't going into place. A lot of things weren't going into order. A lot of things not going to plan. A lot of people not wanting to be responsible for certain things. Now it's not that we're not going to be responsible. It's like now we can finally take care of something that might have been harder to take care of before. And self-care is a big part of this energy. And as we get more into self-care, as we take care of more things, more information seems to be able to crack its way through our throat chakra, at least more truths, so to speak, but more stories, more information, more coming out. And I feel like it's a big flow throughout the weekend for some people. It's going to bring them an emotional response. For other people, it's the necessary part of their healing process. Now, again, whenever it comes to Saturday, the only transit is that Mercury Jupiter trine. It's reactivating the trine with Saturn, but it's not quite exact. This is actually going to go exact on Saturday, but there's a reactivation of emotional understanding that's a big part of the weekend. And the moon in Cancer is just adding some extra benefit to it. It's adding extra layers of emotions and things that we need to purge and things that need to get off of our chest and things that we don't need to worry about anymore. Now we're getting into the 7th. The moon is going to be in Cancer most of the day between 8 and 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this now at 8:30. The moon is going to go through a square from Chiron. There is, again, something about the solutions, something about the wounds, something about certain activities from the past that are kind of feeding into a healing energy. That's going to make more sense when I do the month ahead. I just need to keep saying that. I haven't done the month ahead for you guys yet. That's coming out tomorrow. Chiron's hitting the square to the moon. So there is a solution. There is an idea towards a solution. There's talking about an old insecurity or an old wound, but I don't necessarily know that I'm going to feed into the old insecurity and the old wound so much. But there is certain conversations being had about responsibilities and who's going to be responsible for what, or what's going to be started coming through. There's glimpses and glimmers of something. This is actually going to be more exact the following week. So from December 8th to the 15th, we're not quite in that yet, but there are rumblings, there is news, there's communication of certain actions that are about to come into focus. They're just not quite into focus yet. And some people might be hearing some things that they didn't necessarily know was going to happen. And they don't know if they agree with, but that doesn't mean that what's happening isn't necessary. I just want to be clear about that. We don't always get our way. Okay. Between 10:49 and 11:12 a.m. Central Standard Time, that is when Mercury is going to go through its trine to Saturn. Now, this is going to be simultaneous to the Moon Jupiter conjunction. So again, Mercury just hit that trine to Jupiter the day before. We just came off of a full moon in Mercury's sign. There's some kind of meeting, Moon Jupiter, acceptance of a transition, of a change, and some of the transitions, Mercury trine to Saturn, have to do with certain responsibilities, have to do with certain orders, has to do with the elder, has to do with certain bosses, CEOs. Some of us, we need to have certain conversations about the responsibility that we are going to be taking. And that is met with certain kind of acceptance. I accept this change. That's the Moon Jupiter energy. Considering Jupiter is hosting Saturn, Mercury's in the higher authority in that trine to Saturn in Jupiter sign. There feels like we need to have a very, I'm saying stark, but I mean like necessary start. Necessary meeting, conversation, lessons, teaching about responsibilities moving forward. Who's in charge moving forward? What's best for the elder moving forward? Sometimes this meeting can be the doctor, the guru, the teacher, Moon conjunct Jupiter. For other people, it is more along the lines of the hope and the healing in the acceptance of, like, again, how certain responsibilities are going to go from here. And considering right after this Moon Jupiter vibration, as we go into the afternoon, we actually get the actual trines from the moon to Saturn and the moon to Mercury. So that's going to be more exact right here between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. So you can kind of see this here. Here's Saturn 2514. Here's the moon 2512. Here's Mercury 2518. We've got this wonderful grand trine energy of emotions, but we don't have it as much retrograde as we did again back in November. So this feels solution oriented. It feels like the things that we do, the actions that we take, the unanticipated, unexpected result of how we charge something forward, how this is going to progress from here, what we do next. And for certain people, there's a level of acceptance on Sunday that this change is necessary. Just to be clear, it's going to be interesting. This is weighted in the sense of like it's going to be hard to miss, but it doesn't feel weighted in the sense of like everything's going wrong for me. I don't necessarily feel like that's the case. That was the Mercury retrograde time frame. This feels more productive and directional for a lot of people. Okay, moving this along, we're going to get into the evening time. This next one is going to happen basically between a window of 5:30 and 8:30 p.m. So I'm going to put this at 6:30, and I feel like this is just going to encompass both of them. So between 5:30 and 7:30, Uranus is going to hit a sextile to the moon. Between 6:30 and 8:30, Neptune will go through a trine to the moon. This goes back into that environmental stuff. Some of the things that come through can be unexpected, hearing about things that we didn't know about, that we were out of the loop of. Sometimes it's none of our business. And whenever we hear about it, we're like, oh, that's crazy. Okay, good for you. I had no idea. Sometimes we're not supposed to have an idea. Sometimes we're not supposed to know what's going on in other people's lives. And we find out things unexpectedly. So I'll doom scrolling, the TikToks and the Facebooks and stuff like that. I'm trying to be obnoxious on purpose. And there can again be something about something unexpected, something that we didn't know, something that we were not clear on before, something from the past. People have recently come back around, something putting a different shift into focus. But considering this trine and the sextile again is happening simultaneously, this can be like a weird whirlwind that kind of triggers emotions, but this does not feel like a negative trigger per se, but it does feel like it's going to trigger some level of reaction, because at 8:49 p.m., the moon is going to go into Leo. And that is actually where we're going to leave it. The moon's not going to, it'll be building to an opposition to Pluto, but this is actually going to go exact right after midnight going into the 8th. But I always love when the moon goes into Leo because I feel like there's a boost of confidence in there. And considering the sun is in Sagittarius, we have all the Sagittarius, Jupiterian stuff energy. It feels like whatever environmentally kind of comes through by the evening of the 7th brings something into light. It brings something into focus. It shows us something that we want to do differently. It shows us why we need to make certain transitions. And it feels like a boost of confidence for a lot of people. And that's the mainstay right there, is the boost of confidence. We still got this Mercury grand trine energy between Saturn and Jupiter as we wrap up the weekend. But I feel like as we get into next week, we're going to be able to issue some kind of news, some type of conversation, some type of reality check for some people, but filing something announced, pronounced, that becomes a big part of the topics. It's a big part of the vibration. It's a big part of the focus, so to speak, as we're going into the rest of the month. I like December. I think December is going to be a really good month. I really like this next week. I feel like it's a lot more hopeful, boastful, confident versus what we've dealt with throughout the month of November. I warned that November was a necessary messy, especially whenever it came to our emotions, a necessary emotional messy. There's the things that needed to come to light, that needed to come to the surface. Old wounds, old insecurities, old ways of thinking that we don't need to continue, old patterns, old traditions that we don't need to continue. And now that we are aware of whatever that insecurity was, we can squash it, And I mean this in the sense of like, recognize it, process it, understand that it's a wound, but don't let it continue to hold you back. Don't let it continue to weigh you down. Because so much of December is about a transition into a new direction, a transition into a new focus, a transition in the energy. And this week, especially with that full moon in Gemini cricket, no, Gemini, I apologize. That full moon in Gemini feels loud. It feels pronouncing. It feels announcing. It feels very, very necessary. But for some people, it will be mundane. But it's still necessary, that decision. That decision opens up something else, or it solidifies and concretes something for you. Even if it's mundane, it's necessary. But now that Mercury is direct, we're going to wrap up this timeline of Mercury going through Scorpio. And we're going to wrap up this timeline of needing to deal with the old wounds and the old traumas and the secrets. We're going to wrap something up and finally put it to bed, regardless of if you're having profound conversations or not. Sometimes it's just putting it to bed within our hearts. We know it's there. We know it's been a problem. We know it's impacted the past, but it's not something I'm wanting to continue to give weight towards now. And there's a directional focus that really starts to shift in. And I feel like once the full moon in Gemini kind of happens, that is going to also be something that comes through. The focus, the logical, necessary focus. For some people, it will bring secrets to light. It will be truths that need to come out. For other people, it is going to be a direction. It is going to be a hope. It is going to be a plan, or at least the inklings of one. I really like the energy this week. And it doesn't feel confounded. It doesn't feel like people are being forced to sit in one spot and stew anymore. It feels like the first inklings towards new steps and towards new energy and towards new reactions and towards new long-term vibration. There's a big forward motion that's coming through. And we get the first little selections as we get into December. This week is where we're going to voice a lot of that necessary directional selection. And that's a good thing. So, okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.